today. You might have seen the piece about diversity in the city of Providence, and I do have around to the corner, I believe, one of the folks we reached out to, community leader Ray Watson. Thanks for coming in today, sir.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Put your right foot on the red tape.
All right there.
And we can talk right to folks
Okay, very good.
about what we talked about a little bit yesterday.
Sure.
Now, this was the research that Go Local did to find out, again, diversity, especially in the leadership ranks in the city of Providence.
Yes.
And we reached out to a wide range of folks for reaction, but really wanted you to come in to talk a little bit about, because, you know, folks oftentimes ask, what is the role of diversity?
Sure.
And why is it needed?
Sure. So when I think of diversity, I think of Providence. The fact that you can walk through this city, meet people from almost any continent and any country from around the world, and they've all come here to make this place their home. And I think that's something very unique. And I actually think it's a strength because through diversity, you learn to interact with different types of people, which means you learn how to relate and work with different types of people. So I've always looked at diversity as a strength because the world is not based around your little piece of home. And if you are ever blessed with the opportunity to do like international business or something, it's not going to fit that you're only used to doing things the way that you do them back home. So that's what I've always looked at diversity as a strength. Particularly in a city as diverse as Providence, it would make sense that, you know, government would reflect that diversity of the city that they're servicing.
So you saw the piece today. I'm sure you saw some of the feedback, and you've heard it before. Well,
Yes.
Why don't those jobs just go to the most qualified candidates?
Yes.
Why do we have to talk about diversity?
Well, I think a lot of times we have to talk about this issue of gatekeepers and who's deciding what the most qualified individual is. It's human nature to just move towards people who are more like you.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, you grew up in Cranston or Warwick. Oh, you went to this. And if you're dealing with people from different backgrounds, they might not have those sorts of relationships or things that can connect. So they might just by nature be viewed as less prepared, less. So it all depends on who's doing the deciding on what's qualified. So when you say just give it to the most qualified people, the next question is, well, who's deciding what qualified means? And I think that's probably where we run into a lot of the issues in terms of diversity.
So do you think this is an important discussion to be had? Who's in the leadership positions in the city, in the state? Is this a conversation that needs to keep expanding?
I think it is, and I think it's a conversation that's been taking place well before the Elorza administration got there. I've been actively involved in it, and absolutely, because once again, the people in positions of power deciding who is worthy, who isn't, are the ones who decide who gets hired, are the ones who decide what policies get implemented, are the ones who decide whose issues are important or not. And once again, in a city as diverse as Providence, it probably is a good thing if you have government that's reflecting the individuals that it's servicing.
So let's talk a little bit about your work and Mount Hope.
Yes.
It boils down to the community level. And
Yes.
Talk with us a little bit about what you're working on right now in Mount Hope.
So in Mount Hope, we're really looking at trying to change the narrative of the neighborhood. I think a lot of times when people think of Mount Hope, they have very negative connotations that go along with it. And we do have our share of issues to deal with. But I think that there's a lot of positive in Mount Hope that goes on a consistent basis that isn't often acknowledged the way that it should be. So if we're talking the Mount Hope Cowboys, if we're talking the diversity of the fantastic organizations and institutions that service the neighborhood like the Everett Dance Theater, all of these sorts of things come out of Mount Hope. But Mount Hope is kind of pigeonholed as this place where violence takes place and you don't really want to go there if you're on the east side. So we're dealing with a lot of that, and particularly we're doing that through the neighborhood association, through what we're calling a sustain and develop strategy. So of course you have individuals in the community right now that have immediate needs that need to be met. Food, clothing, housing, all of these things, and of course they need to be addressed. But if all you're ever doing is helping people out with their immediate needs and never providing a way for them to move forward, well, as the case we can see, 20, 30 years later, you're still providing people with their immediate needs, and now some of their children are coming in. So in Mount Hope, we're really looking at how do we address immediate needs, and then how do we also help our community to move forward. And this conversation about diversity fits very well because employment, policies, all of these things that can give our community members a leg up, they're all decided by people that are in power. So.
Well, that's why I wanted you to come in. As I said, we reached out to a wide number of people. We saw a wide range of feedback.
Yes.
Wanted to talk with you a little bit about it, and just how important are cultural activities to bridge the divide
goodness.
here, especially here in the city?
I think culture is so important I think particularly because it helps to mitigate against racial tensions. And the example I always like to give is me being Narragansett in descent. I've always wondered why my Irish brethren and sisters seem to relate more to their English counterparts than they would to me. The Irish people went through colonization by the same people that colonized my people here. When you go into the history of it, a lot of our Irish brothers and sisters came here as indentured servants. Same thing that a lot of Narragansetts were forced into. So I've always wondered why that connection's not made, and it's because we get over here and we get into these racial sort of designations of me being a black person and them being a white person. So all of that gets erased. There's not really much opportunity to connect or understand each other, and we just remain divided. Now, when we have the cultural conversation, when we do a powwow and Chief Black Eagle invites an Irish bag player to come and present, we're able to share our culture with him. He's able to share his culture with us. There's a new relationship that's developed. And then we're both also able to connect with each other on the fact that, hey, culture's important. And I know about your culture, you know about mine, so perhaps we could even be friends at this point. So I think culture is so important. That's why I'm so heavily involved in it. That's why the powwows, that's why all the stuff you see me involved in, kind of going really crazy with it, because I think it's important that we understand and acknowledge each other's unique stories, how we came to these particular lands in Rhode Island. My wife's family is from Mexico, and I always ask, out of all the places in that you came to Rhode Island, you know, so it's just an interesting story. But if we never get to that cultural element, we never get to share that with each other.
Well, I appreciate your coming in to talk with us about this here, because, you know, we do the stories, but I love having folks in to really explain, again, their vantage point. We do it every Friday. I have Russ Moore in talking about Hot or Not, but a lot of times we do the stories. I like to have the people in, again, bringing it right to you here at Go Local Live in a live format, in a discussion format. And I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be talking soon, Ray. So
Absolutely.
Appreciate you taking the time
Thank
to
you
come
very
in
much,
today.
Kate.
I'll let you go around the corner. If you didn't check out the piece today, it's on Go Local. Again, it pertains to diversity in the current city administration, talking about the lack of diversity in senior level officials. Ray Watson, community leader from Mount Hope, was one of the individuals we got some reaction from, plenty of others as well. Wanted him to come here into the studio to talk a little bit more about it, and again, reaction from folks about this piece. So appreciate Ray Watson coming here to the Navigant Credit Union broadcast.